Good morning, Kal Kadosh, Boker Or, Shavua Tov, Masechet Bava Batra Daf Amud Aleph 6A1. We were just on the bottom of Hey Amud Bet where we asked the following question. The question was, what happens right now if somebody comes and he tells them a week after the due date, hello, how are you? Where's my debt, right? My loan. I lent you money and you didn't pay up your debt. The guy comes and he says, what are you talking about? I paid you back early. Now, do we say Mali Leshaker, which means do we say that he should be believed with the Migu? Because he could have come and said that I paid you back on time, and then he would have been believed. So now that he told you that he's paying back early, so he should also be believed. Or Dilmar maybe Migu bimkom chazaka. Here you have a chazaka. The chazaka is the person doesn't pay back early. So a Migu instead of in a place of chazaka, meaning Migu against chazaka, we don't say it. So that's the question. So says the Gemara, Tashema, we're going to try to bring a proof, and we added our Mishnah that until the 4 amot, it's a chazakah that you paid for it, until somebody brings a proof that you do not pay for it. Hechidami, what's the case? If he asked for the money afterwards, right? And he told him, and he told him I paid back early. Pshita, obviously, he's not going to be, well, obviously, what's going on there? Ela, but rather, Lavda Amale, is it not that he told him that I paid you back early? So, Alma, you see from here, we do say Migu. So, answers the Gemara, the same answer that we answered on the first stuff. Shane it's different to wall because every single row is considered, the whole shafa v'shafa zimnu is considered its time to pay. And therefore you can't bring a proof from the wall. So, okay, fine. So, Tashema, let's bring another proof then. The proof is, what about from 4 amot and upwards? You remember we said from 4 amot and upwards, we don't obligate you to pay. But what happens now if the guy, the second case of the Mishnah, the guy comes and he puts a wall also beside it, which was also the 8 amot. So there we said the opposite. Achevira yashinatan. He has to bring a proof that he actually gave the money. Hechida, what's the case? Ilema, if it's going to be shetivao le'achar zmano, that he comes and he asks for it after the proper time. Amarlo, he tells him, praticha bizmani, that I paid it in my time. Amai lo. Right? Why is it not going to be believed? Elalav de amar, but rather, praticha betoch zmani, that I paid it within the time. So alma, see from here, bimkom chazaka lo amnir malal shaka. That in a place of chazaka, we're never going to say, in a place of chazaka, we don't say that. Right? So says the Gemara, Shanehacha, here it's different. The same answer we answered yesterday. Right? And Dafei. Basically, whoever told you that the rabbis would obligate you to pay. So therefore, it's not that we say Migu B'gom Chazaka or not. You can't bring a proof from the latter part of the, meaning, the former part of the Mishnah, you can't bring a proof because every single line, every single row of bricks is considered the proper time. So you can't say it's something which is called early. The latter part of the Mishnah, you can't bring a proof. Why? Because who in the world is going to pay if they don't even know if they need to pay? Meaning, it could be that they'll never obligate you to pay. So if they don't obligate, why in the world are you going to just offer up to pay for no reason? It doesn't make sense. So, Amar le Ravacha bered Rava le Ravashi. Says Ravacha, the son of Rava to Ravashi. Tashama, let's bring another proof now. Mani li biyadcha. Imagine I come and I tell somebody, listen, you have $100, right? That belong to me. Amarlo, he says yes. Ulmachar marlo, the next day he comes and he tells him, today will you give it to me? Amarlo, imamar, if he says netativ lach, I gave it to you, he's going to be patur. If he says lecha biyadi, he's going to be chayav. Everyone understood? One more time. I come in and I said, John Paul, you owe me $100, right? You have $100 by you. Say yes. Okay, very good. The next day I come to you, John Paul, can you give me the money? So now if you tell me, I just gave it to you. Meaning within the time that I admitted to you, and now, which is a day later, I gave it to you, you're believed. But what happens if all of a sudden you change the story? And you said, I don't have any money of yours.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about? Now you're chayav. Right? Because you already admitted. So says the Gemara, my love, are we not talking about netativ lach, that I gave it to you, that I paid in the proper time? And I don't have anything that he told him, I paid you early? And Ktadim, we said you're going to be chayav. Alma bimkom chazaka. We don't say migu. Lo amrina mal shaker. We don't say why could I have lied. So says the Gemara, no. What does it mean? En lecha biyadi. What Richard said. Lahadam. Lo yudvar. It never happened. What are you talking about? That's what it means. Meaning we interpreted, right? We interpreted the words. I don't have anything by me, meaning that I paid you back early. Says the Gemara, that's not the interpretation. En lecha biyadi means I never borrowed anything from you. I never had anything from you. So therefore, that's why you're going to be chayav. If you come and you told somebody I never borrowed from you, in essence you're saying I never paid you. Because if you say I didn't borrow, that means you didn't pay. So therefore that's the explanation. Okay? Fine. So therefore it comes out that the ta'ana shniya is not mityacheset to the paying back early, so therefore, right, the Gemara stays without an answer. So if somebody's going to ask you, 1 second, what's the answer of the Gemara? There's no answer. So therefore, since it was an answer, lalacha, we're going to be mikilim nisafek, just like any safek in mamon, and therefore he's going to be patur with shvuat heset, right? Lemafreas, right? Shepara. He just has to swear that he paid back, and that's it, because we go lenient. That means we don't have an answer. Do you say migu b'kom chazaka or not? We don't have an answer. Because you couldn't bring a proof for the Mishnah. So now says the Gemara, 2 dots. That if somebody else comes, meaning that the one of the neighbors, they come and they put the second wall beside it, so you see that he's happy with the height, because he wants to put like a roof on top of it and then close it in. So Amar Ravuna comes and he says, Samach lepalga, what happens if you only did to half of it? Right? So that means he only put, one less.
From 4 to 6.
Yes, exactly. Instead of 8. So samach lekula, right? So he says, so he's obligated to pay the entire gova kilu that you did the entire thing. Meaning once you went up, you're obligated to pay. From Nachman Amar, no, he says no. Lemay de samach samach. Whatever you went up, you went up. Or lemay de lo samach lo samach, or that we don't. Meaning, since you didn't show that you were actually happy with the true height, maybe you don't have to pay. Right? Only that which you were actually got the actual height, and that's it. But not more than that. Umod Ravuna. So Ravuna comes and he admits, Bekarna velufta, that we're talking about like the corner of the house, right? Or the connection, okay? So he says that what? In such a case, he has to pay the chelek of the right, his portion of the height of the wall, only that which it actually went up. And Rav Nachman is going to come and he's going to admit, Bafriza, in a case where the other one he put, right, a long piece of wood, right, that is going to be on the entire thing, uvikata, right, uvikvata dekshure, or in a case of, right, chorim at the top, right, that he's only going to have to pay, right, the chelek as well. So one more time, what was the machloket between Rav Huna and Rav Nachman? Rav Huna always says the second that you went up, it doesn't matter what, you pay the full amount. And according to Rav Nachman, you only pay the extra that which you did. Rav Huna, that he comes and he says that you always pay the full amount, there's one exception to the rule that you don't pay for the full amount. You know what it is? What happens if it comes on a corner of my house? Meaning, I come out and I build, after a little bit of time, I build a wall going from the corner of my house to the wall. The fact that I'm not going to extend it on the entire wall and I'm only just going on a little part, Rav Huna admits that I only have to pay on a little part, because I'm not going to build on the entire length of the wall. Remember, the way that we explained that Rav Huna and Rav Nachman is that you built the wall from 4 to 6, right, instead of going to 8. By the way, it's not only just upwards, it's also what happens if I only built on part of it on width also as well. Meaning, it was a 10 foot from right to left. I only built 5 feet from right to left or left to right. So I didn't do the entire wall. According to Rav Huna, remember, the second that you did something, you're obligated on everything, except for this exception to the rule. This exception to the rule, which is a corner that since I'm only going to build there, and I'm not going to extend it anywhere else, so Rav Huna admits you only have to pay there. You don't have to pay anything else. The other way around, Rav Nachman comes and he says that you only have to pay for that which you built, meaning a little bit extra, but never the full amount. Says Rav Nachman, however, though, what happens if I put on the entire length of the wall a type of a beam? I'm just showing that I really want the entire wall. So therefore you have to pay for the entire wall. Or if I made holes, by making holes that I could put the beams in between the walls, so also the fact is I want to put a second, so by doing these things, I'm illustrating that I'm happy in the entire wall, and therefore even Rav Nachman comes and he agrees that you have to pay for the entire wall. Okay, next part. Amar Ravuna. Ravuna comes and he says, Bei kave. We're talking about windows. Okay, it's like a house of windows. Bei, right? The chalonot. We're talking about windows, right? Which are built. Lo avi chazaka. It's not a chazaka. It's not a proof that you want to come and you want to build something there. And even though you come and you put, right? You put inside the windows, right? Like a mizgeret, which is basically like a frame and everything. That's not a proof, right? That you want it there. The Elmaleh, he could tell him, Amina lechi payistli, that when you're going to come and you're going to fayesoti with money, right, and you want to actually put a wall there, lo itra shitai, right? I don't want it to be damaged, right, from all these things, right? That means while we're building it, I'm already going to fit windows, right, in the second wall, because I don't want it to become weakened. Meaning, if you build the wall and then you tear out to make windows, you weaken the wall. But when you're building it and you do that, it doesn't weaken the wall, because that's how you're building it. You understood? Okay? So therefore he comes now and he says, right? So therefore the fact that you're making windows with a frame is not a proof, right, that he wants the tall, right? He wants that it should be higher than that. Okay? Which one? Says the Gemara, Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman, achzik lehurde, lo achzik likshure. If a person has a chazakah in the zechut of placing his, let's say, the beams and everything on the kotel of the friend, so it's not a chazakah to place heavy beams there. Because he could say, listen, I only allowed you to put something which is very light, not very heavy. But likshure, so obviously it's much lighter than as well. Meaning, if you already have a chazakah that you could place certain things on my wall, so if it's light things, so you can't put heavy. But if it's heavy, so then you're allowed to put light, obviously. Ika damri. Rav Yosef Amar, Rav Yosef says, achzik lurde, no, even if it's light, you could put heavy as well. Okay? You can put basically whatever that you want. Ika damri. There are those that say, Amar Rav Nachman says, the opposite. Likshure achzik lurde. If you had a chazakah of putting light things, you could put heavy things. Heavy things, you could put light things. Okay? So he says, Amar Rav Nachman, achzik lenatfe, achzik l'shafche, achzik l'shafche, lo achzik l'natfe. Right? What does that mean? If a person has a zechut that in his gag you're going to have the rain coming into it, and therefore his roof is going to be like a gutter, right? So therefore you have a chazakah also that even it's going to be a lot of water coming in, it's going to be the same thing. Achzik l'shafche, if it's going to be in the chazakah of having all the waters coming in as a gutter, it's not going to be the chazakah of just having a little bit of rainwater. Rav Yosef says, even achzik l'shavche, achzik l'natfe, even if you do have the chazakah of having the rainwaters, you are going to have the chazakah of having these waters, right, as well. So now it says that again, according to Rav Nachman, if you had the chazakah for the rainwater, right, so you do have the chazakah for the gutter. But if you have the chazakah for the gutter, you don't have it in the rainwater, because the gutter at least is going to be in one area, and the rainwater is going to be damaging throughout the entire roof. But Rav Yosef comes and he says, no, you have it on everything. Right, the same thing like Rav Yosef before. You have it on everything. Right, but before he was not talking about the rain, he was talking about the hanging on the wall, but it's the same concept. Ika damri, another version. You have a chazakah for the gutter, you have the chazakah, right, for the rainwater. That means here again for everything. That means the Ika damri is always adding on, that you're adding another dimension that you're allowed to do everything. But for a tzrif, which is going to cover with areva, that means if you have the zechut of having the rainwater is going to come right through it, you don't have a zechut coming from the roof without a gutter, because then it's going to go beside it and it's going to damage the entire area. Rav Yosef comes and he says, even tzrifa d'urbane, even if it's going to be a gag, a roof which is made out of this, how do you say it in English?
Shack.
It's like a shack.
Shack.
Okay. It's basically made out of like willow, exactly, like willow. It's like a sukkah, exactly. It's like willow branches on the top or whatever it is. So obviously you don't. Rav Yosef says, even though that you're allowed to. That's what he actually did. Okay? Fine. If you're going to rent out a house to your friend, okay? In a big house, in a big palace, right? A big house. You're allowed to use the beams which come out of the walls, right? So all these beams that are coming out, you're allowed to use until 4 amot. The wall, in a place where they have the minhag, but you have no rights of coming and using, right, something which is going to lead towards the garden, right, because that you didn't accept. Meaning that basically when you rented out the house, you have the rights of using certain parts of the house. Certain parts was like, pegs or things like that used to stick out, beams that would stick out the house. You could hang things there, and you go, why? Because it's part of the house. There's no problem. Rav Nachman himself said, even if it's going to be towards the garden and everything, you're allowed to. But the backyard, right, that you're not allowed to use, because it's not included in the rental agreement. Okay, so basically, again, we're talking about different rentals or different things when you're renting out. What's included, not included, these are the halachot. Rava says, no, even the backyard you're allowed to use. Okay, fine. Amar Ravina comes now and he says, we're talking about a kurava sukkah, which is made for shade. Okay, which basically you put it beside the wall of your friend until 30 days. If he didn't say anything, it's not a chazakah. Okay, but after 30 days, if it stayed there, havi chazakah, it's going to be a chazakah. Right? Why? Because it's already there, right? And it's going to become a chazakah. He says that maybe, did he pay him? Did he not pay him? He says until 30 days, the person's not makpid. But after that, he's going to say, hey, what are you doing over here? It's so hot and everything. You're just destroying my property. the sukkah the mitzvah, but if it's going to be a sukkah the mitzvah, you have 7 days. Until 7 days, it's not going to be a chazakah. After the 7 days, it's going to be a chazakah, because obviously during the time of the sukkot, I'm not going to tell you anything. But right after the sukkot, I'm going to tell you, listen, get rid of the chabre betina. But if you connected it with clay, right, which means that it's going to be fixed, it's a chazakah immediately. Why? But then I could scream at you immediately, tell you, what are you doing? Right? You're coming, you're putting your thing here, you're destroying my walls. What's going on? Okay? Fine. Amar Abaye. Abaye comes and he says, Shnei batim b'shnei tzidei reshut rabim. When you have 2 houses on 2 sides of the reshut rabim, ze oseh maaseh lechetzi gago, veze oseh maaseh, right, maakeh lechetzi gago, ze shelo keneged ze, umadif. One more time. Look, everyone look what's going on. I have a house here, you have a house here. We're on 2 sides of the reshut rabim. You have a picture over there. Right? So what happens? Now, I don't want, right, each other to see each other. So you know what we do? I have to build half the wall, and you build half the wall. So I'm going, let's say, half the wall from north to south. You're going south to north. And we have to do a little bit extra. So therefore, when I get up, when I look at you, in front of me, I have my wall. And if I would go to the part of my roof that does not have a wall, I have your wall. So I can't see what you're doing, and you cannot see what I'm doing. The doctor asked a beautiful question. He said, 1 second, what about the mitzvah ma'akeh? So the mitzvah ma'akeh, which is basically that you always have to put up a fence on your own thing, is only going to be 10 tfachim. Right. Which is, it's small, which is going to be 80, right, 80 centimeters. However, though here, right, so that way you shouldn't fall off the roof, chas v'shalom. But here we're talking about a mamash of 4 amot. So since we're talking about 4 amot, nobody could obligate you that, right? Yeah, 4 amot is 1.92 meters. It's much more. So obviously here, what we're trying to do is that we want to make it that we're not how do you say transpassing or transgressing, that I cannot see what you're doing in your property. So therefore, this is the way to do it. So as the Gemara, why do we say that we're talking about Reshut Rabim? Even Reshut Yachid also. Why can't you do that? Meaning, why do we need to speak about that we're talking about 2 different houses on Reshut Rabim? Why?
Good question.
Even if it's going to be Reshut Yachid, a private property, and we have 2 houses in a private properties, also the same thing. You need the case of Reshut Rabim. Because one of them could say, sof, one guy could come and tell him, listen, why in the world should I build anything? You are obviously already obligated to build a wall. You know why? You have to watch yourself from the Reshut Rabim. People are walking down the streets and they could see into your property. People could only see me during the day, not during the nighttime. You could see me whether during the day or during the nighttime. Meaning during the day, you could look up and you could see on somebody's roof, that's one thing. But if it's going to be now during the nighttime, you can't see me. But you're right in front of me. So even at nighttime, you can see me. So that's why I want you to build, and each one has to build in order to protect during the nighttime. Another answer, Inami, Rabim ki kaimna chazili. Only when I'm standing, people could see me during the day. Right? Ki ativna lo chazil. But if I'm sitting down or lying down, you can't see me. But for you, chazili, you could always see me, whether I'm sitting or standing. Rabim, and not only that, ki ma'ayini chazili, only when they're ma'ayin, they could see me. Ki when they're not ma'ayin, they can't see me. You see me. Meaning, if I'm on the bottom and I look up, I have to concentrate to see. But if I'm right in front of you, I don't have to concentrate. I just look and I see. It's just right in front of you. So these are just different answers. So Amar More says, we just said that each one does half, plus they have to do a little bit extra. Right? And each one is not opposite each other, obviously. So it says in Pshita, obviously. Well, obviously, that means each one, you can't do it exact. So he says, one of them already did it. And he already did the makeh for half of it. I would have thought, say, he could tell him, right? Take the otzaot and do the entire thing. Right? Meaning like this. Imagine right now, you did half. I come and say, you know what, Richard, do me a favor here. I'm going to give you the money. You do the entire wall. Finish the wall. You already started. It's not that we both agreed and then we both come in. You already started your half, and then you come and you want to obligate me to do half the wall. I can say, no, Richard, here. Okay, take it. So, Kamash Malan comes to teach you, it's not a Tana. Why don't you want to do it? Mishum Dimitra Shitcha, because it's going to weaken your wall. Ananami, it's also going to be my wall. And you remember, one more time, when you're building structures on a higher floor, if you don't have the proper foundations, it ruins the walls. So therefore, just like right now, you don't want to do it because you don't want it to weaken your wall, I don't want to do the full wall on my wall, because then it's going to weaken my wall. Amar Rav Nachman Amashmuel, says Rav Nachman Amashmuel, Gaga samuch lechatzer chaviro oselo ma'akeh gavo 400. When you have a roof which is close to the chatzer chaviro, you're going to make a ma'akeh, right, 4 amot tall. Aval begag legag, but if it's going to be between one roof and another roof, no, right? He says over here, because people don't usually use roofs, and therefore, since it's so you could, basically you could be careful when you're going to do dvarim snuim in the roof, right? Aval begag legag, no. That means if it's going to be beside a chatzer, listen, the backyard or the yard people use all the time, so therefore there you have to make a ma'akeh. But here, if it's between one roof and another, people usually don't use the roof, so you don't obligate that. But Nachman himself said no. Ve'amar eno zakuk arba meot, but zakuk says no. Even though it could be that you don't need 4 amot, but you still need 10 tfachim. You still need 80 centimeters. Meaning, I can't obligate you in the 4 amot wall, but I could still obligate you in the. So says now the Gemara lemai. What do we need this exactly for? If it's for hezek riyah, you always need 4 amot, and if it's to become like a ganav, so just even pegs is already enough. If it's going to be for a gdina tli, it's just enough that they shouldn't put their head through. Meaning, what is the purpose of this 10 tfachim wall? You just told me that from one roof to another, you don't need the 4 amot, but Rav Nachman himself said, no, but you still need 10 tfachim. For what? If it's hezek riyah, you shouldn't see, you should need 4 amot. If it's going to be for a ganav, so therefore mesipes val just pegs, and what are you doing on my property? You're how do you call it?
The roof.
Yeah, the roof, from one roof to another roof. Okay? So answers the Gemara, Le'olam nitpas lav keganav. We wanted to, should be for the mesipes, he could just say, listen, the mechitzat asara, he says, if he went over a wall of 10 tfachim, he can't say no. Meaning, the second that you have a 10 tfachim wall, 80 centimeters, you had to go over it. When you went over it, what are you going over it for? That means you're like a ganav. I caught you. But if it's just going to be stam mesipes ba'alma, you could say, I need it. Here, there's a wall. You went over the wall. Okay? Matevei, so they're going to ask the following question. If your chatzer was above the gag of your friend, any skakin lo, you don't have to do anything. My lover, we're not talking about now, any skakin lo klal, you don't have to do anything. Meaning, what happens if the chatzer was above the roof? Before the gag was above the chatzer, then for sure we said that yes. Why? Because if the roof is on top of the chatzer, the roof could see everything in the chatzer. We obligate the guy of the roof, build for amot, because the chatzer, I do private things. Here the opposite. One more time. Right? One more time. What are we talking about? We're talking, before we said a roof. Is it normal to do private things on a roof? Before we were talking about a roof, which is a roof beside each other. Now we went back to the 2 original cases. There's one original case. What happens if you have a roof beside a chatzer? Meaning the way that my roof goes, my roof ends, and this is your backyard. So therefore, what happens is that when I have it close by, I could see everything which is going in your chatzer. You obligate me to build the wall. Why? Because the chatzer, the courtyard, is where you do private things, and therefore I need you to protect. So you're obligated to come and to put the wall. What happens now if it's the opposite way around? That the chatzer finishes right above the roof. Here you don't have to do anything. Why? Because since it's not normal to use the roof as a private thing. Yes, exactly. Yes. So there, since it's not normal to do private things on your roof, you cannot obligate me on my chatzer to make a wall. So says the Gemara, we're not talking about enes kigin lo klal. Says the Gemara, no, enes kigin for 4 amot, but you're going to do a mechitza of 10 tfachim. Itman, it was stated, 2 fields, one above each other. Ravuna says the bottom one has to build upwards, and the top one has to build upwards. Right? That means each one is building, he goes upwards, and the top one also has to build upwards. Rav Chasta Amar, he says, no, the Elyon just helps the bottom one and they build upwards, right? That means it's not that each one has to build upwards. It's the top one helps the bottom one and they just build up. We learned in accordance to Rav Chasta, the top one cannot say anybody. 1 second. You don't need it. So now, Hanau Beitrei, right, the Havu died. So one more time. So therefore he said, the top one cannot say, I'm going to build the opposite, but rather he's going to help out for the bottom one. But if the chatzer is going to be above the gag, he doesn't have to do anything. Hanau betrei davu daire. Right, there were 2 brothers that they inherited from the house from the father, and then they come and they divided it. One of them was on the top, one of them was on the bottom. Itvar tatai. The walls on the bottom started breaking. Amarle tatai. So the bottom one told the top one, let's destroy the house and build it. Amarle, he says, I'm living fine. Why do I have to destroy the house? I'm fine up here. Right? So Amalei comes and he tells him, Isre anavivni. You know what? I'm going to destroy the house and I'm going to build it. Amalei, he says, I don't have a place where to rent. Amalei, I'm going to rent you out a place. Amalei, I don't want it. It's too much problems. Lo kamitali. He says, yeah, but I can't live. So shufa kresach, he says, bend down, go in, and bend down and get out. If he's allowed to be ma'akev, right? He's allowed to stop him, right, from doing it. But that's only if it's going to be that it's less than 10 tfachim. But if it's going to be less than 10 tfachim, right, he could come and tell him less than 10 tfachim is already my reshut, and therefore you do not are subjugated to the 10 tfachim.